some years later, I found another book of creativity, which was quite called Wired to Create. And not only that, I so want to specialize myself so that I can be the person who talks about how can we become more creative in our roles and more like creative in our everyday life.
Oana Velcu-Laitinen is a NeuroLeadership coach and a trainer with a focus on creating creative thinking to enhance work and career performance. Oana's clients include researchers, change leaders, entrepreneurs, and individuals who are seeking career growth, which is everyone listening right now. Oana is focused on supporting individuals and organizations to create cultures of creativity and change. And I've already talked to Oana for a few minutes. She is energetic, she is fun, and we're going to dive into how you can advance your career, how you can create a creative culture so that when change does come, and it will be here, and if it's not here already, it will be soon, you'll know exactly what to do in order to move forward in your career and your business. And if you lead teams, you'll go away with strategies to help your team grow as well. When you take away even just one insight, strategy, or maybe we made you smile or laugh, then please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. We're not going to show you an ad. We're not going to have a sponsor. We do that to not interrupt your experience. And it's also because you're already the best part of the Be Better team for sharing the show. So without further ado, let's talk to Oana. Oana, it's nice to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
It's wonderful to be here, Brandon, and dear listeners. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious because I don't often see the term neuro leadership, especially when it comes down to this concept of creative thinking and especially creative thinking in the workplace, right? I feel like we, a lot of people listening may even work for an organization where they have strict systems and structures and, they say they want you to be creative, but then you are creative and you bring an idea and that idea might be shot down. The idea might not be accepted because they don't want change. And I mean, you've written a book all about this. You've got your book, How to Develop Your Creative Identity at Work. So talk to me, how did you come about becoming a neuro leadership coach, diving into these different topics and subjects?
It was a process which started first with me getting certified as a coach by the NeuroLeadership Institute, where the focus is on the human brain and more exactly on how the human brain reacts in the social environment, taking into consideration the threats or the encouragements, the rewards that the brain picks up. So that was the beginning of my specialization and the beginning of me writing this book. But then after I got this specialization, I was thinking that I'm actually more creative to take it further in this area of the creative brain. How does the creative brain of performers in companies, how is it managed, and how can we make more of it? How can we use it to our best advantage, and of course to the advantage of the company? So you could say that I was inspired by the training that I got in the NeuroLeadership Institute, and then me being a researcher, I have my training as a researcher, then I developed my own training packages.
Oh, I love that.
And then the book.
Yeah, no, congrats on your journey, your certifications, your book. This idea of the creative brain, I've never heard someone say it in that way. Is every brain creative? Are we all creative? Is it in different ways? Like when you think about the creative brain, what do you mean when you say that?
It's a very good question to start this conversation with. And it's very important for us to keep in mind that now in this dialogue, when we talk about the creative brain, we actually refer to this mini or personal creativity that we have, each one of us, because our brain, when we are born with a creative functioning. And this is something that is very important to kind of relate in each one of us, that we have this mini C creativity or personal creativity, which can be reflected, for instance, at work when something unexpected happens, when, for instance, you have an unexpected issue with a client, and that's in that moment. It's a possibility, not the certainty, but it's a possibility that your creative functioning kicks in. It
Mm.
depends also on how you manage to manage yourself in order to face the particular unexpected situation. Um, and um, and the more we are aware that we can work with ourselves in these moments when we may feel threatened, well, for instance, like you're about to close a deal with someone and you were expecting that it's gonna be like certainly signed, and then it doesn't go like that, then is the time to remember, I do have this mini C creativity. Let me think, what can I do? How can I manage the best this situation? It doesn't mean that you are gonna save the deal and get the contract, but maybe you are gonna tell something funny, a joke, and then you may start to develop a better connection with that particular client that later may lead to a deal. Or you may if telling a joke is not your style, you may be creative in another way, by I don't know, inviting them to lunch some other day. Like there's so many ways this mini C creativity can be manifested in these unexpected situations.
Yeah, no, I love that description because from what you said, what you just said, it sounds like this idea of the creative brain is it's the part of the brain that's used when you're not operating on autopilot. So for a lot of our days at work, I mean, for everyone listening, think about an average day of work for you. 90% of what you're doing is very likely what you did the day before and the day before that, unless you're in an extremely creative role,
Mhm,
in which case you've already really trained this creative faculty. But
mhm,
most of us, including myself, 90% is what I've already been doing. But then comes what you call the threats and or
mhm,
the encouragements,
mhm,
where now we're taken out of this autopilot. It's like when
mhm.
you're driving in the car and you forget the entire trip, and then all of a sudden you're conscious and you're like, wow, I've been driving for the last 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this creative brain awakens, and now you can tap into this superpower.
Mhm, mhm.
But again, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like this creative brain is something that you have to strengthen and work on. And like you said, be aware of it so that you
Yeah,
can even work
yeah,
on it and strengthen it. Would you
yeah.
agree with that?
I totally agree with what you said, and it's very important for us to to be more deliberate in exercising this creative thinking in these situations, which we may perceive them as a threat to our job or to the particular situation. As I said, signing a deal with a client or whatever unexpected task comes your way in your everyday role. So this is one way to be more deliberate about exercising our mini C creativity. And I say mini C, by the way, because I wouldn't want to confuse it with the creativity of eminent people, like the people who are having larger scale impact on society. And that's why I say the mini C creativity, because it's the creative thinking that we can exercise in order to impact our local community, whether our workplace or just a particular relationship with a client or with a boss or with a colleague. So that's why I refer to it mini C creativity, but it's very valuable. It's ours, and we need to develop it to become a pro C creativity, a professional creativity, where we already are deliberate about the situations when we can use it. And as I said, it's very important to work with ourselves in these moments when we see threats. Through creative thinking, we can reframe the situation, empower ourselves, and we may not be able to control it entirely, but certainly by using creativity, we can turn it more into our favor.
Yes, absolutely. When did you personally become conscious of your own mini sea of creativity? When did you become conscious of the idea of the creative brain in your own life? Was it as you were developing the book, or was it during the beginning of your career? Guide me through that. I'm curious to hear when you were awakened to this idea.
Yeah, that's I haven't thought of, at least I haven't verbalized it. Um, for many years, I was using my creative thinking unconsciously. And for many years, for instance, I was taking my creative thinking in the realm of theater. And I was writing theater scripts, and then I did a bit of acting, even though acting was not really my thing. I was into writing script plays.
Mm,
But I was doing it unconsciously, or maybe because I was like convinced that a creative individual is someone who gets involved in the domains of art. But then when I started to think that maybe I have this like creative brain, this mini C creativity, that I can use it also in my professional life as a researcher, for instance, in a technical field.
hmm
That was when I discovered a book. I was still a researcher at that time, studying information systems, and that book was talking about creativity, change, and innovation. And for me, these three words, creativity, change, innovation, was like, that's such an odd combination. What can it mean? And then I it opened my eyes to the fact that there are lots of papers, researchers studying the psychology of creativity.
Mm,
But then I kind of left it aside. Somehow, that book remained somewhere back in my, like, forgotten in my memories. And then some years later, I found another book of creativity, which was quite called Wired to Create. And um, and then they were talking about the habits of highly creative people, these eminent creators.
mm,
And then that was like the moment when I decided, like, I so want to, like, bring some habits into my life, habits of creativity. And not only that, I so want to specialize myself so that I can be the person who talks about how can we become more creative in our roles and more like creative in our everyday lives. So that second book, Wired to Create, was like the moment when I decided I'm so gonna become myself this expert. And at that point, I already had taken the NeuroLeadership Institute coaching, and I was inspired by what they're doing and what materials they're presenting to the coaches that they get the certificate. And I was like, I'm so gonna combine these two things: my desire to become an expert in creativity with what I've seen in the NeuroLeadership Institute.
yeah, that's great. I just for those listening, we have a lot of people on the show who also love to read. And this, for those watching, you'll be able to actually see my screen shared here. This is the book that Juana
Yes.
has mentioned, Wired to Create. It's by the author Scott Barry Kaufman and
Yeah.
Carolyn Gregoire. Do you happen to remember the first book that you read that really opened your eyes to this idea of creative thinking and the faculties there?
Yeah. It's an author that has a Greek name.
Okay.
If you can wait a bit, I can see if I can find it.
Yeah,
But
no,
that
absolutely.
was the name of the book. It was Creativity, Change, and Innovation.
Oh, okay.
And one second, where I should have,
Looking it up
because I
right now.
just wrote a paper recently where I mentioned this book, because meanwhile I got back to it. I reread it with a new interest. And
There's a couple with that name. Yeah.
Yeah, there are two authors. One of them, it's a Greek
Oh,
name.
Constantine, right?
Yes, exactly. That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. It's called, for those listening, it's Managing Change, Creativity, and Innovation. And I'm curious to hear from you, not to throw like all these books out there, but have you ever?
Dawson and Andriopoulos.
Okay, cool.
Dawson and Andriopoulos, and they have, like, in 2021, they had the revised edition of the book.
Oh, very nice. Okay, awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out personally. That's why I know we have a lot of readers tuning in here. So okay, so talk to me. When you discovered this idea of the creative faculties that you, as a writer for theater, are using on a daily basis, what were some of the things that you did in order to strengthen and train your own creative faculties at that point in your life?
First of all, I started to read a lot, to read books and research on the psychology of creativity. So I started broadening my knowledge in this area, and I discovered that there are so many researchers having different angles to this aspect of the creative brain, neuroscience, emotions, cognitive scientists. This was the first thing that I did. I read a lot. You could say that I started doing my second PhD. And then the other thing that I did, I kind of had to work with myself. As I was reading, I was creating my own training packages, and I was mm, like selling them to people. I started first with people who have this artistic creativity, like writers. But then I changed a lot. But that was the beginning. I allowed myself to experiment with different types of audiences. And I said that I had to work a lot with myself, because still, for me, obviously, this association between creativity and genius was so strong. And somehow I felt that like, I'm just a tiny little ripple. Yes, I'm very fascinated by, very attracted by the field of creativity, but maybe I should be just, like, not get involved with it. But still, somehow I was like, and that's how I ended up writing the book, because it took me many years to be kind with myself, and say it's okay. You don't have to be a genius so that you can become an expert in creativity. And that's when I decided that I'm gonna dare to write also a book with my own perspective. To, the book is, in a way, like, I'm aiming at bringing a refreshing perspective in the research of creativity, but I am addressing directly the public. So that was my intention with the book.
So
To
you're
write it, yes, to write it for people who have this suppressed creativity, or not to develop creativity, or people who are not very connected with their creativity.
Yeah, I was literally just going to ask you that. So again, Juana's book is How to Develop Your Creative Identity at Work. And I was going to ask you, what are you looking to achieve most with the release of your book? And it sounds like it's to help the people to awaken this creative energy and strengthen this creative energy, because I know there are a lot of people out there that I talk to on a daily basis that would say, I'm not very creative. Right. And we know that's not the case. Like, the brain is the most impressive computer ever known to man at like the 10th degree, like, and even more than that. It's more powerful than any computer we have on earth. So how could you not be creative with this massive supercomputer that we have between our ears, with all these different connections and neurons and links and all this power? So with your book, how do you recommend to the everyday person listening how they can strengthen their creativity? Because I asked you that question and you said, well, I began to heavily read and I read a bunch of different topics and different things on creativity. So is reading a big part of that? And what would you recommend to the person listening to strengthen their own creative faculties?
Yes, to reading is a big part of becoming creative in a particular professional domain, because you have to know a lot.
Yeah.
But then you also have to allow yourself to make those experiments. Like I said, that I started with this course, which was for people with artistic creativity, people who wanted to write a book, or people who wanted to be more like a pottery artist, for instance. That was experimenting, reading, and daring to create, even if you know that it's part of your process. When that's the starting point. I would recommend to our lovely listeners to understand that when we start on this path of discovering our creativity, we have to start from somewhere, and it may feel clumsy. It may feel we are not professional enough, we are not competent enough, but we have to persevere. And the starting point is like from understanding who you are as a professional, and what are your psychological needs as a professional. And that's why creative identity is like a very core concept in the book, because if we want to embark on this discovery of creativity, we want to understand who is the creative person that we want to become.
Mm.
And in my book, I am opening up um, many other possibilities regarding the impulses to create. And we talked earlier that we are very acquainted through the social conversations we have heard. We are very acquainted with the artistic creativity, with the impulse to create, which comes from the personal need to express yourself, or a very important experience of life, or some strong emotions, and you express them in a way that other people can relate to them. Like now I'm thinking, for instance, about Frida Kahlo, who who painted a famous painting after she had a miscarriage. I mean, that's a very strong experience, traumatic for a woman. So she painted that painting, and other women can reflect themselves in it. So that's these impulses to create we are mostly familiar with. But in my book, I'm introducing another three impulses. One of them, the impulse to be to care about other people's feelings, emotions. That would be what, let's say, the healers that we know, the counselors, psychologists, psychotherapists, all these people who are willing to help people get over their emotional wounds.
Mm.
That's another type of impulse to create, and that is manifesting in the one-to-one discussions and one-to-one dialogues that the healer has with the people who need healing.
Yes.
Then another impulse that I am introducing in the book is this impulse of taking initiative. These are more in a way, the active doers, the people who are most driven to bring a change in their community. I'm thinking now about entrepreneurs of all sorts, social entrepreneurs, innovators, knowledge entrepreneurs, and leaders also. These are the people who have this impulse to take initiative, because if we think about it, how change is created. It starts from one person who knows how to gather around them like a power group, and in time they're working and working on the change until the momentum is there to share it with other. So this is the other impulse to create that some of us have, and maybe we don't acknowledge it as a creative impulse, but think about it. Out of nothing you come up with a change initiative. If that's not an act of creation, then I don't know what.
Yeah.
And bear with me, the fourth and last impulse to create is the attraction to abstract ideas. That's what scientists, psychologists have, like the Einstein type of people who want to understand through the power of their mind something that our eyes cannot see.
Mm.
So it's very important to decide and commit. That's like commitment. I'm not talking about something that we can make, yes, consciously, but we have to feel that it's emotional commitment to one of these four impulses.
Yes, thank you for sharing those the four different impulses there. I want to dive into that because you said something very interesting. But I would like to show this because I mean I'm sure you know these numbers, but this was a study that was done that says, and for those watching, you'll be able to see it. For those listening, I'll read it. It says, as you can see, based on the study above that I won't show because it's a lot, less than half of people on average, which is 39% of people in 2012 and 41% in 2016, would describe themselves as creative. So only 41% of people about 8 years ago or so would call themselves creative. So it does look like it's going up, which is very cool. Very likely due to works from individuals such as yourself, Oana. But it says here also, while these numbers seem to be rising very slowly, this still shows that the majority of people around the world do not believe in their own creativity. Now, it does say here everyone is creative and everyone has the potential to improve their creativity, which is what we're talking about right now. But I'd like to ask you, so a couple of the first things you mentioned there with strengthening this creative brain of ours is to learn a lot of different things. Now, where does one begin when it comes to learning? Because if they go to Barnes and Noble or a bookstore near them, there are bookshelves upon bookshelves upon bookshelves. Like, how does one determine the area in which they should learn and grow in? What would you say to that?
I would say to start by asking yourself, what are the areas that are most interesting to me? And make a list with, let's say, 5 areas from the most things that you feel that you're most passionate about, being the top 3, and then 4 and 5 things that you could be mildly interested in. And then it comes this matter of discipline. We need some discipline also when we talk about learning new areas of knowledge or new areas of expertise. Discipline in like putting in a date in your calendar, date with your own learning. And I don't know, for me, I usually use Google Scholar. That's how I have collected the information for the book. I went to Google Scholar, and then I was thinking, okay, since I'm interested in creativity, I'm going to type in the words creativity, organizations, personality, and it takes time, and it's very frustrating. As you know, the learning curve in the in the first 2 stages when you are a novice, it can feel very uncomfortable to wrap your mind around sometimes maybe more complex terms, but you have to hang in there, because it's at the same time, isn't it nice when you get to the stage when you feel you are a master in something, and then when you can share with other people the latest things that you are a pro on. So you have to be conscious also about the learning curve and be patient, and gradually, like in time, this information is gonna accumulate. And then sometimes also be willing to be flexible. If you think, okay, maybe this top interest that I'm most passionate about, maybe I'm very passionate about it, but maybe, like you have to keep also, another thing is that you have to think, who could use the learning that you accumulate, with whom could you share it, who would be interested in paying you even $1 in order for you to transfer the knowledge that you are accumulating.
Yes.
So while you are going through this list of like very passionate to mildly interested topics, just keep in mind also this aspect of us being in this world of financial rewards, and think, like, how could I make use of this learning?
Yeah, very well said. And I love what you said about transferring that information to other people, because it's one thing to learn a lot of things, but again, you mentioned as one of, I think it was part of the second impulse of socialization and having these conversations, because once you have these new ideas, who can you talk to them about? Like, even when I read a new book, I'll talk to my wife Bree about what I learned in that book. It's one thing to learn, it's another to share. And if someone out there is thinking right now, well, why would I want to read all these things when all the knowledge in the world is available at my fingertips right on my smartphone here? Why would I need to do that? Well, one thing that I'm sure your phone can do this, but one thing that's powerful about this idea of strengthening your creative faculties is you can go get a book on music and you can go get a book on fitness or well-being, and you can learn about both of these domains. And because you know about these two very different topics and subjects, now you can put them together and create something entirely unique that you can now give to somebody else to help them.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about what you know, like what you just said, Juana. It's not about what you know. It's about taking all this information and asking, how can I package this information in a way that can help somebody else, that will save them time on their own journey? And maybe I can make $1 from transferring that information to somebody else. It's a value exchange, right?
Yes.
Information for money, or whatever the value exchange is. Maybe you're looking to rise up in the company, and that still is a value exchange. You get a promotion that generally means you're earning a higher salary or income, and you're helping more people at the same time. More value equals a higher paycheck for you because you strengthened your creativity.
Yes, and one from what you said, one thing is very important is that we have to make the difference between being a consumer of information and being a producer of information. And when you start to understand that you may have some creative impulses, you start to be more of a producer of information than a consumer. And in that case, you have the responsibility to go more to the source, closest to the sources of where the knowledge, where the information is generated. That's why I prefer to go to Google Scholar, because I want to understand how researchers are thinking, what theories they are using on creativity, how do they test those theories. That's my way of getting as close as possible to the source of where the information is generated. And I'm sure that in any other field, like for instance, I could imagine if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, then that person would want to read more books written by entrepreneurs. And in this case, they have to decide, okay, which are the most reliable entrepreneurs from where I could get inspired. And yes, all the time we have to keep in mind that we are slowly becoming producers of information, or if not information, then producers of products.
Now, Juana, you are a dual PhD, correct?
You could say I'm a dual PhD, because I did all this learning on the psychology of creativity, but it was on my own.
Yeah.
Now I am entering again the academic area. This summer I'm gonna present my first paper at an academic conference on the creative identity.
Wow.
But up until now, I mean, like many years ago, I quit from my postdoc in information systems so that I can become this knowledge entrepreneur, or designing, building this training on creativity, and selling my courses here in Helsinki at the universities, two of the universities here in Helsinki, and some of the companies working in function, who are having their business processes here in Finland.
That's incredible. Congratulations on you sharing your learnings with the individuals at this conference and really entering into the educational arena, because you're not someone who is just talking about these ideas. You are living them, you are breathing them, you are constantly looking to learn more. And I can only imagine a decade ago you wouldn't have guessed that you'd be on this show or your book or sharing these ideas at conferences and institutions. And it just goes to show that when you do become that consumer at the beginning and you learn all these things, and then eventually you start asking the question, where is this information coming from? And then you go to Google Scholar, which I've only been on Google Scholar a handful of times, but it's a free resource. And there's other, you can dive more into it and pay for more information. But eventually you become the producer and you are now on the cutting edge of this specific field that you're learning. And for those listening, they might be like, well, I don't want to present a paper at a conference. I don't want to work with educational institutions. Well, that's great that you know what you don't want to do. What do you want to get better at? Because the whole point of this conversation from where we started and where we are now is really the question of what can you become the best in the world at? What
Exactly.
can you become the most knowledgeable at, so that
Yes.
during our time here on this earth, you're able to say, I was able to contribute knowledge and experiences and learnings to this one really powerful area of life that will go on and live beyond me and will continue to improve even after I'm gone.
Exactly, and by being having this desire to be among the best in a field, the professional field, then we have to understand that we have to put an effort and develop the creative impulse that is in us. And of course, my impulse is towards partly towards abstract ideas, and that's why I go to the moving with one foot to the academic domains. But you have to choose out of these four impulses, which one do you feel most tempted to, because then when you get connected to it, you are gonna become this producer of knowledge, producer of ideas, producing products, services, and people in your professional spheres are going to start noticing that I still believe that knowledge is power, and I still believe that knowledge is one way to have a very good living.
Yes, and it's fun. Like, it makes life enjoyable and fun to have something that you are deeply knowledgeable in, that you enjoy learning more about. Like, for me, like, you really piqued my interest when you said, well, what are like 5 things that you want to learn more about? Well, I immediately think I love learning about people. So reading biographies, autobiographies. I love music and the histories of music. I have never even delved into the histories of music. So there's a whole arena I could learn: fitness and health and well-being and mindset. And there are so many different areas. But if you could pick one area, guys, as you're listening, that you want to learn more about, that would help you advance in your career, maybe it's relevant to your career or your organization or job, what would that one area be that you can advance in? And then, Oana, if you can you show us your book? I know you've got it next to you. It's a very nice yellow cover. Very nice. Yep. So for everyone looking, how to develop your creative identity at work. After you determine, okay, cool, what are those areas that you want to learn more about and become best in the world at? And by the way, if you don't know that answer yet of what you want to be best in the world at, that's okay. Learn about 5 different things, maybe dive into each of them, and then determine, when I'm reading about this specific topic, I feel better than when I'm learning about all these other ones. You know what you're attracted to, essentially. Then pick up Oana's book, How to Develop Your Creative Identity at Work, because she will guide you through how to strengthen those creative faculties even more.
And at one point, so the first part is to start to pay more attention to these impulses to create that you have, by noticing this like momentary sensations, these attractions that you have, for instance, from ideas or what people say. And then, like, you may realize, like it happened to me, that okay, the second book I read, it represented like a pull towards creativity. I was like, okay, I'm going to read more about it. And at one point, the more you read about a new topic, the more you feel, at one point you may feel, I want to speak about this, and you find your own niche topic. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty and the fun you're talking about of learning and of becoming a producer, a creator. When you realize that you feel yourself, you feel that this is the person you want to become, the person speaking about something. And it's, for instance, one also, like when we talk about business people, leaders. Can I give an example that
Yeah.
impressed me some years ago? It was one of the former CEOs in Nokia. Nokia is this Finnish cell phone company.
Hmm.
And one of the former CEOs, he wrote on his LinkedIn page many years ago that he started to be interested in all sorts of AI algorithms, and he started to, like, learn more and more about it, and he declared it publicly on LinkedIn. And I was very impressed, because if you think about it, at the end of the day, you may think, well, a CEO is so well paid, like he's gonna, like, why should he bother with learning about AI algorithms? But like, I was like, well, that's a creator. That's what you do at any stage of your career development. You feel this impulse to keep on learning new things, and then becoming, like, in a way, a role model for others in your field to keep up with you.
Yes.
Now, I'm afraid I have not kept up with how his career has developed, but I would strongly encourage our listeners to keep on thinking, what is it one thing that I can learn and can make me, like, differentiate me from my colleagues?
Yeah, and I certainly would. I would do anything to get you out of that comparison trap, because what you're doing is, in a way, controversially, even more powerful than what he did. Right? I mean, you are introducing these ideas of creativity to a whole world of people, 60% of people who don't believe that they are creative. So what you're doing is infinitely more powerful, in my opinion, because even if one person that you reach over the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, reads your book and says, wow, I do have this creative power, and it's a muscle. Like when I go to the gym and lift weights, it's a muscle just like that I can strengthen. Who knows the type of leader that will be born because they picked up your book or heard this show or something along those lines. So you are on that leading edge, and you are inspiring and helping many people, Oana. So I'm grateful that we made this conversation happen. And I know that a lot of people are going to want to grab your book. So tell me, where can people find a copy of your book?
I think that Amazon.com is one of the platforms. Then Springerlink, it's actually the publisher.
Okay.
Then I think Book Depository, Barnes and Noble, they also sell it. So just check it out on your favorite online book sales platform. They
Okay.
should have it.
And I'll make it easy for you guys. There will be links in the description to go grab a copy of Juana's book. And where can people follow you? Are you on a specific social platform that you prefer and hang out on?
Yes, my most, let's say, I feel most natural on LinkedIn.
Me too.
So if you Google my name on LinkedIn, Oana Velcu-Laitinen, then you'll find me there, and I am quite active there. And if you want to write to me, I'll certainly reply to you. And one thing I would like to, because I'm not aware of the time, but can I say one more thing about, like,
Please. Yes.
at the emotional level, what happens to us on this path of connecting and discovering and developing our creativity? What happens to us is that we start to feel more whole. I know that, like, we say that we are good enough. That's true. We are good enough. But there is this wonderful experience. It feels like almost coming home, this kind of more like emotional, spiritual home, when you develop more these impulses to create that there are in you, and that the environment supports you to develop.
Yes, it's like goes back to that saying of life supports those who support more of life. And by learning and growing and developing, you are becoming a stronger conduit of information that you can then give to other people and help them. So by helping others, we prosper, they prosper. And in order to help others, we must package these learnings and take them in that form of creativity that we talked about here. But you've given us a lot of useful tools, Juana, and very practical things. I'm a practical person, and there's a lot of philosophy, but you've done a great job at breaking down that philosophy and making it real for people. And I know that once they pick up your book, links are in the description, they will be able to take even more steps forward on the path to awaken their own creativity.
I so hope so, because also, like, at the end of the day, this book, even if it contains lots of research, but also it's behind the words and behind the ideas is also my own direct experience with my own journey from the moment when I realized that I have a creative brain, the mini C creativity, till this moment now, when I'm very focused on developing in this area of like developing people and cultures creativity.
Yes, I can tell. It's very clear in your communication that you're passionate about this, and I look forward to see where you'll go with this. And I look forward to have you back on the show in the future, because I know that we've only scraped the surface of what we can talk about. So I thank you very much for spending your time with us and sharing your just a very small portion of your wisdom and your learnings. And it was a very fun conversation, Juana. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a wonderful host, Brandon, and I wish to the listeners a wonderful spring.
Thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation of how you can awaken your own creative resources and faculties that you already possess in order to further your career, become whole, as Juana calls it, as well as help other people at the same time and have more fun learning new things, packaging them, helping other people. We all want to help others. And by learning more and awakening your creativity, you're more well equipped to do that. If you found value, a piece of advice that helped you, and you liked the show, please share the show with just one other person who could use it as well. You're the reason the show has grown over the past 2 years, because you are the best part of the Be Better team. And be sure to go check out Juana's book, How to Develop Your Creative Identity at Work. Links are in the description to make it easy for you. Go grab a copy. The price of the book will earn it back so much more for you after you awaken your creativity and use it to make steps forward. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.